Is it the connections? Is it because they didn't know what to do on a Thursday night? It can be all and any of those. So this is what we call a value proposition, right? So I imagine some of you have heard of the lean startup methodology. Can I see some hands? Who has? Okay, not everybody. So the lean startup methodology is a methodology described by Eric Ries, some kind of smart guy, who said that you need to build your startup up from a problem that you're solving for someone, and you need to do it through very quick iteration cycles. So let's just put the iteration cycles aside. That's more on the process side. It's more about how do I create value for someone else. Now, in this case, in a sort of standard business case, you produce something for someone. So that can be a service, a product, a technology, whatever, and that person gives you money back. But like I said, that's not necessarily the only way that you can create and capture value. But that is what a business is. Yeah? It's a way to create, deliver, and capture value. And that's it. As soon as you have an idea that does that, you have a business idea. And this is why some people are sometimes surprised when I give the workshops, the first workshops in our program. It sounds very simple. It really sounds very simple and very straightforward. And we were also talking about it in the train earlier on, is that the theory of business is very easy. Practice is very hard. So I'm not going to talk to you about the theory a lot. I'm going to see if we can actually do some practice. Now there are two ways to try and come up with this set. Yeah, we have a person that you're going to deliver the value to. You have the value proposition, and you have how you're going to produce it, or technology, but not necessarily. Let's, for this case, just say it's technology, yeah, for the theoretical case. Now, the traditional approach, for the last, 5 years, of the lean startup and agile and all those kind of things, is what we call customer-centric design. So we start from the customer need. We define what they want, how I can create value for them. And then I determine how I'm going to deliver that. Sounds easy enough. That's how you do, quick iteration cycles. You actually go and talk to customers, interview them, find out what their pain is, develop something, have them test it, go back to the drawing board, start again. This is very counterintuitive, because it means you need to choose someone that you want to solve a problem for without knowing what that problem is. If you really do it by the book. Now this, in practice, rarely ever happens. So you usually start with an idea, okay, this is the kind of problem that I want to solve. Let's see who is the person exactly that I'm going to solve it for, and then how can I execute it? With all kind of validation and that kind of stuff in between. Now, what we see much more often is this. Is I have a cool tech, and I need to sell it. Yeah, so technology-centric design, if you want. Which, if you look at it from customer-centric design point of view, you're at a disadvantage. Because you already have a tech that you need to force into some kind of mold. Which is silly. Because you've spent all this time and money in developing this technology, and now you're at a disadvantage. Yeah, that's not entirely true. So, what we usually do is we take the technology, we translate it into a value proposition, and then we see who could be helped by that value proposition, and then we go back forward. And then we have a marketing strategy. So that might also be something, that you could look at for an app, for an event, or for another type of technology, saying, this is what we have, what value does it deliver, and who could be interested in that. But it's all about being very precise about who the person is you're going to deliver the value to. Now, like I said, and I've been talking more than I usually do already, I like to make it interactive. So what I would like to do with you guys now is try and see, can we come up with some business ideas? And I'd like to start with the first one first, which is the customer-centric approach. And actually the most common one that we have there is what we call normally scratching your own itch. So you decide that you're going to solve a problem for a very specific person, and that person is you. Because we're all very altruistic beings. So, I would like you guys to think for a minute or two, because otherwise the silence is going to be too awkward and long, about something that is bothering you in your life that you think you could make money with if you solve it. Is that clear enough sort of framing? Yes? No? Yeah? So anybody can come up with a business idea, and then as soon as I see people stop thinking, I'll get back to it. We're doing a crash course in meditation. No, just kidding. So this is Anima that I've been telling you so much about. So, who has a business idea? Great, shoot.
I'm a physiotherapist and I need to do exercises every day, but I don't do them every day.
Okay, so
I want a solution for it.
You want a solution for it? Okay, interesting. Yes?
It's just a minor basic that annoys me that I don't have instant access to all entertaining media is available. And I have to jump through a lot of hoops to get different types of entertainment in my life. And I know that it should be very easy.
I can think of a very easy way to make this a very dirty conversation very quickly, but let's not. Okay? Okay,
I'm open to that.
Clear? Anyone else? Yeah?
I have experienced it myself, and I have noticed it in a lot of people here in the Netherlands, that I need for at home, like I order bike repair and maintenance. So people that, they find out that their bike's tire is flat, but they don't have the time or don't have the will to fix it themselves or take it somewhere. And bike repair and maintenance service. There is? Yeah. I didn't know. All right.
So that's a fixing getting your bike fixed at home because somebody's actually building a business on it. So good idea. All right. So what's maybe do some publicity here. What's the business?
If you search it online, probably there will be, because one of my mates were having troubles, and he was doing it, and he found out years later, a guy that fixed bikes for a year ago, even the problems. But I can vouch that it's a very good plan.
Bikes as a service.
Okay. Anyone else have an itch that they would like to scratch? Yeah.
Yeah, my itch is probably more responsive help desks, where sales is trying to sell me a service, and then if all goes very up, then support has to act on it. Has no clue who I am, what I purchased, what was promised before. That's probably my biggest itch ever.
Biggest itch ever. Okay, clear? Good? Yeah?
Sales calls.
People calling you or you calling people?
No, people calling the office, blocking the line, very hard to get rid of them.
So my strategy there is, where did you get my number? Please never call me again. It works very well. It works very well. Okay. No, clear? Okay. Clear, Rich? Yes?
Main question of the drive time, you drive a lot, and there is a lot you do. You get specific book that lays it down, but you also want to lay down lots of text, website or news. While driving, if you have some app that translate everything and just read it out to you,
You could probably paste it in Google Translate and then hit the little speak button, but I don't know if there's a limit there. But you could. Well, maybe we can make a business model out of marriage as well. Interesting. Okay, good. Anyone else? Yes?
Work in technology. I don't speak Dutch and I have the great difficulties to find a job here. And the only offers I have, and like many others that I talk to, is to work with service desk. So maybe that explains why it's so bad.
Okay, so diversity of job offer, something like that, or opportunities or whatever. Okay. For internationals. Yes? Anyone else? Yes? Okay.
All over the place. I'm going to do how you never get rid of really discussion.
Okay.
Everything is separate to cover facts and plastic. It seems to be a person.
Yeah, you have a few supermarkets, packageless supermarkets, right? But they're like scarce and far apart. Okay, so now that we have all those itches, what would be the next step, do you guys think? Scratching, yes? Okay, that's one. What's the other? Yeah, okay, think of what I asked you. Yes, so that's scratching. What is scratching? That's scratching. The other thing is finding other people that have the same itch. Right? So for a business to work, you need to be able to sell it to more people. So only solving your own problem, well, it's going to make you happier, for sure. But the big difference between something that is nice and useful for you and a business is that you actually find more people that you can sort of define, more people like yourself, to whom you can sell the same scratcher. So it goes hand in hand, building the scratching tool, or developing it or whatever, and finding more people. So you can do those in any order that you like, or at the same time, but those are the two main elements of a business. Right? So customer, solution. And then you, obviously. So this was a 2-minute exercise that we did with 20 people in the room, and we already came up with 10 business ideas. So coming up with ideas is not the struggle. Do you all agree? The hard part is executing it. Right? And there is no magic recipe for that. And I'm not going to try and give you any magic recipe for that. But you just have to do it. So the main thing is, what is the value that I deliver to my customer? Who is my customer? Am I able to do it? Now, the am I able to do it is this side of the story. So I'm bringing it back to tech here. I'm very, very sorry. But inventing something really awesome, that is the other way to do it. So you just stumble across some kind of amazing invention. You didn't do it on purpose. And then you think, hey, maybe I could sell this. Maybe there's something that I can do with this. Now, there is a way around that. So this is where High-Tech Excel story comes back into play. Is that we have technology on the shelf that we don't know what to do with. Now, do you guys know CERN? The particle accelerator in Switzerland? It's hundreds of Einsteins locked up in a bunker. And they have nothing better to do than to make particles go faster and faster and try and find out the God particle. Now, however fascinating or uninteresting that might be for you, along the way, they invent all kinds of cool stuff as well. Right? I think one of the things they developed was wireless internet. So who of you uses wireless internet? This is something that they casually developed on the side because they needed to communicate faster. Right. Amongst other things. So this is the kind of stuff that they do. This is a public organization. They're not supposed to make money. So they can't actually build businesses with this kind of stuff. This is also why the internet is publicly available to everyone. And we just pay for the provider. Yeah. Sure. So what we did, or what we are doing, is we are facilitating for CERN, together with NICEF, some other very smart people, but a bit more in the region, a hackathon initially, and then later on actually a whole program, Business Accelerator, to build a business. Now this is an opportunity for everybody in the region, so that includes all of you guys, and also people who also want to come from other regions towards us. That's also fine. We're doing a selection process that finishes next Monday for people who would like to start a business with one of these CERN technologies. And then we're going to start that in September. So literally anybody can apply. Of course, there's a selection process. And then on the 2nd of July, there's a hackathon where we're going to try and identify business ideas. Now, what I have for you guys is a little movie which tries to explain these crazy technologies. So, sneak peek. It's lasers, particle accelerators, and cooling, CO2 cooling, which is something super useful for households all over the place. Everybody has a laser. So hold on to your seats. If you don't understand the tech, it's okay. I also don't understand it. So let's have a look.
For the hackathon at the 2nd of July, we were introducing 3 CERN technologies. The first one is CO2 cooling, the second one is a structured laser beam, and the third one is a high-frequency radio frequency quadrupole technology. So the first one is CO2 cooling, which is actually developed in collaboration between CERN and NICEF, so there's a joint patent on this technology. And the principle is the evaporation of the CO2. So during the whole time on the system there's 2 phases, and this means that you can get the constant temperature throughout your whole system you're cooling. Another thing is that you can do a very precise temperature stabilization, and because there's no fluid going through it at high speed, there's very little vibrations. And the thing is that you can use very small micro channels to actually to cool the system. The second one is the structured laser beam. So normally a laser beam diverges, so you get the peak, and then in that over a large distance the peak becomes less bright. This beam has a structure, it's kind of an interference pattern itself. And this means that the central spot stays very sharp. And the other thing is that if part of the beam would be blocked, that the beam reconstructs itself. You might lose a little intention in the center of the spot, but you still keep the sharpness over hundreds of meters. The third one is the high-frequency radio frequency quadrupole, which is a this-sized accelerator. And the advantage is that over a short distance of a meter you can get up to 2 MeV energy. And the main thing is that this is a very short, compact system to reach such energies. And the main use is now for proton therapy, for cancer treatment. But there are many other applications where proton beams are used, for instance for material analysis, and usually those systems are much bigger. So we're really looking at making the application much smaller and portable probably.
Right. Can we get the echo? Yeah, perfect. So, who understood the technology and actually thinks we can do something with it? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. The rest, no? So, the first one is basically a better cooling system than what we have now. A lot of cooling systems are liquid. Second one is a better laser than what we have now over a longer distance. And the third one is something that is very, very, very niche, so I'm not going to challenge you with that one. But what I'd like to do for the last little exercise is, can we come up as a group with applications for long-distance lasers and or cooling systems, high-performance cooling systems. So, anybody have an idea of what needs really good and regular cooling? Okay, medical applications, yeah. Beer. Beer, okay, this is closer to home. Sorry? Computer chips, yes. Processors, yes.
Research setups, just like a lot of things broader maybe.
Yeah, research setups, yes.
The atmosphere.
The atmosphere, sorry.
The more mundane, maybe in your house you're living.
Living room, so house applications, yeah, interesting. So sort of improved heat pump, are you taking notes, Santiago? Very good. You were saying no? Yeah. ASML, yeah, of course. Anyone else?
Data centers.
Yes. Very good.
Any manufacturing process.
Yeah. So it's basically just heat exchange. Huh? It's a better way. Combustion engines. You want to cool down combustion engines.
The efficiency goes up if you have a very cool base.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Anybody humans or something? There's all these weird people trying to cryogenize themselves. Maybe that will help. I don't know.
I know I've heard it.
True with it, marriage man. Okay. Anyone else?
Fires in the woods.
Fires in the woods. I'm not sure if the technology works for that, but yes, CO2 extinguishers work. That's correct. I said I'm not sure. I didn't say it's not true. How about the lasers? A very big discotheque. Yes.
Killing mosquitoes.
Killing mosquitoes.
Over a long distance.
Well, then it has to be also a high power laser. Okay, yeah. Why not?
Transferring information through light.
Yeah. Sorry? Transferring energy, yes. Interesting.
Say in greenhouses, because they also need the evaporated CO2. And when you get the produce, you need cooling.
We're at the laser now.
Oh, we're at the laser.
That's okay, it's fine. We can still come up with new ideas for the cooling. Yeah. You can also tell me if I'm boring you. It's fine, I don't care. I do this because I know him. I'm going to do this with random people in the audience. Other ideas for the lasers? Anybody have an idea?
Detecting molecules in a solution?
Yeah. The measuring molecules, that's what CERN actually uses it for. So cool. Yeah. No, but also in other applications. So that's another application. Yeah, very good.
High precision measurement or calibration.
Yeah.
Or peak.
So one of the crazy applications of this is that basically when the laser beam hits an obstacle, it reforms behind the obstacle. Don't ask me how they do it, but it's completely insane. And so basically they can actually over a very long distance, even if there are small obstacles, so of course it shouldn't be a concrete wall, they can go around it. So yes. Invisibility cloak. Yes. Yes, I'm not sure if that's how it works, but I get your point. Yeah? Yeah?
Scanning, because if you can scan through vegetation and that.
Yeah. Yes, very good one, indeed. Anyone else?
Can you go inside the person?
No, that's too big of an object. So it should really be a smaller object, so that a part of the beam goes next to it and then the whole beam reforms. But if the whole beam is blocked, but like I said, I don't understand fully the technology, then I think it's stopped. Because it also has to stop against the object that you're measuring on. Otherwise it serves no purpose. It's just an infinite ray. Which might also be cool. Still. Okay, so yeah, we had another one? No? So what I just wanted to illustrate is that with a small group of people who are not necessarily experts, we can relatively easily come up with applications for technology, but we also can come up with problems that would be worthwhile solving. Now, really the crux of the story of building a business is finding a big enough audience that's actually willing to pay money or deliver some kind of other value for it. You know, nowadays, and I guess that you guys are also going to tell us about it, data is also becoming currency, literally or figuratively. So there are other ways to transfer value from one person to the next. But that's where it becomes really, really very tricky. And like I said, there is no magic recipe. You just need to go out there, test it, see if people are actually willing to pay money for it. Because that's the only test that is actually going to validate or invalidate your business idea. You know, there's, I think it's Rocky Balboa who said, you know, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face. It's a bit the same. Every business model, no business model survives first customer contact. You always have to change it. It's always a continuous cycle. So, you know, if you have a business idea, then I wish you all the luck in the world. I really hope it does work. We need more entrepreneurs. But there's no magical solution, and everybody can come up with something to make a business. But what really makes a difference is whether you're passionate about it, to really drive it through, to really do what it takes to make it happen. And if any of you were triggered by what you saw in the video, then I would really invite you to go to this URL, check out the CERN technologies and join us, and otherwise I'm anyway curious what you're going to come up with. Oh, so it might, yes, it might be. So these Einsteins in the cave, they keep inventing stuff. They have a lot more IP, patents, and unpatented technology on the shelf. So if this works, it might be that we do more of those, yes. No. No. I'm saying this on live stream, so there is a risk that somebody at CERN will actually see what I'm saying, so. Cancels the, I would have a very, very big problem if that's the case, but no. That's how we call them. More than one. So we also have mentors and people that just want to contribute to the idea, just see how it goes. More than welcome to register. Like I said, it's a closed event, so selection will take place, but you're more than welcome to join. I skipped my previous slide, and I've been told that this clicker only goes forward. So are there any questions or remarks still before I hand the microphone to the next speaker? I assume by your silence that my presentation was awesome and you are now all enlightened.
Let's just take 2 minutes to run to the bar if anyone needs to, or go to the toilet, and we'll set up the next presentation and start. Thank you.
zie wel het handig is dat we 2 microfoons hebben. Wat is jouw naam? Bart de Vries.
Ja, dankjewel.
Niet meer of?
like. Ja.
Nee, we doen het. Ik denk dat het wel goed gaat komen. Dank je. Ja, dankjewel. Heb jij de klikker in je handen?
Ja. Wil je naar de volgende? Begin maar even.
Ja. A very good afternoon. We are a couple of teachers from the Fontys, and we have prepared a little something about blockchain. And can you go to the next slide?
Of course. If it works.
Button. Oh, I have.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I have a few quotes, and that's to see. I want to assess how much you know about blockchain. And the first one, Bitcoin is blockchain. First of all, who knows Bitcoin? Okay. Who knows Ethereum? That's already less. Who knows Tron? Okay, that are the ones that know.
We have a couple of investors there in the back, obviously.
Absolutely. But maybe it's what you would call an open door. But is the Bitcoin, is that the same as blockchain? Yeah, I see you shaking your head, so I guess that's no. Can you tell me a little bit why?
Now, one is a currency and the other one is a different mentality. So a lot of people they are comparing both and putting them together. It's a completely different idea. Some people are firm believers in the blockchain, which I assume you will explain what it is. And Bitcoin, which is the next goal or the next thing to invest in, because basically people say that it might be the universal currency.
Well, there we have a little bit of a principal discussion. Is Bitcoin gold? Is it becoming the next international currency, the only currency we are going to pay with? I don't think so, but that's a whole other discussion. But the first thing you said was that you have Bitcoin as cryptocurrency and Bitcoin as an application of a blockchain. And that's what we are talking about tonight. Bitcoin, or actually the blockchain, as a platform for applications. Do you have the next slide? The first work on blockchain was in what year? Any ideas? You say 2009? Okay, but why do you think 2009? You mean the white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto? I guess. Yeah.
And anyone upbidding 2009?
If I say 1991, maybe 92, it depends a little bit on what date you take. I don't see any people. Okay, that's the year. That was the year that two guys released a research paper that told a little bit about how the blockchain works. It worked on timestamps. And Satoshi is just the first one to create an application with the blockchain, which was called Bitcoin. We also now know as Bitcoin, the digital gold. Do you have the next slide? Nope.
It's a digital something.
Hey. This one, a blockchain needs a token. Actually, I want to ask you a little bit. Can I come over to you with a microphone? Because a blockchain needs a token. Do you think that blockchain needs a token?
No, I don't.
You don't think that it needs a token? Okay. Are there any people that say blockchain needs a token? You say blockchain needs a token.
I'm not sure what you're referring to with a token. Is it a physical? You mean a physical means for it, or what?
No, the digital ones, like Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever.
Oh. No. Technology based on the blockchain.
Yeah, which you can trade. So Bitcoin was the first one, and then out of this, there's the Ethereum one, which is a platform, and a lot of other coins are based on the Ethereum platform. So when you buy a token out of a blockchain, is it like Ethereum, is it Tron, is it something else? You buy basically a token representing the technology that is based upon the Ethereum platform or the Bitcoin platform, or yeah, is it correct? Because it's not that I'm a super expert, huh? It's just I just I'm a
no one here is. No one here is.
I can tell you that I am also not a super expert. I just know a little bit more about blockchain than my colleagues. That's it. So if you want to hear an expert, there are lots of experts in this world which can tell you a whole lot about cryptography and P2P networks and how you store it. That's not me. I know a little bit about blockchain. But I can tell you a blockchain does not necessarily need a token, but because Bitcoin was one of the first blockchains and to go further with the startup, we don't steal the ideas, but we borrow the ideas. So we also borrow the tokens from the blockchain because everybody created tokens on a blockchain. So we have to be creative and develop something new. Do you have the next slide then?
Yes, I'm just the one doing the clicking.
Okay, this one blockchain. Sorry, is this a proof of work? Yeah, he's a proof of work. He's doing the work. I'm just talking. No, here it says blockchain is actually a distributed database. This one I actually hear from a lot of managers that have read an article on blockchain, and they say, well, actually, blockchain is just a distributed database. So what's the fuss about it? I have a database in my data center. But this is true.
Are we doing voices now?
Yes. But who thinks that blockchain is actually a distributed database? Sorry, do you know what a distributed database is? Because I had no idea what kind of technical level you had, so I just guessed a little bit. But the answer is a bit of both. Yes, there's a lot of data on the blockchain. Sorry, I forgot your name. It's really bad, but yeah. Thibaut, thank you very much, Thibaut. Thibaut, just a little bit about the data. Well, actually, blockchain is a bunch of data that we send around in a structured manner. And because we're doing that, you can also see it like distributed database. But in technical sense, it's a little bit different. Do you have the next slide? So, although I told you this is Danny. Danny is my colleague teacher from the Fontys. Well, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm also going to tell you a little about what we're doing with blockchain at Fontys. But starting with what we are doing there, I'm around for over 5 years now at Fontys. It's the ICT department. What we notice there is that there are a lot of new technologies flying around, and we don't have the means to keep up with them in our curricula, in our educational courses, because it's going so fast, and most of the times there's not enough education surrounding those subjects. So what we notice is that we have students that are eager, that are curious, and they come to us with sometimes technologies that I have not worked with. The same happened with blockchain. I myself teach data science. We do a lot with data, big data. That's a bit more established nowadays, so it's easier to make an entire course around that. Cybersecurity, have been doing that for a long time now, and ethics on technology. And what I noticed in 3 different courses is that with students with their own vision, their own DNA, are curious within their own expertise about what blockchain can bring to the table. And that is why my colleague Jeffrey and I and about 8 other co-workers started a blockchain work group with eventually the goal of an entire educational course surrounding that, and maybe even a lectorate or knowledge domain where we can share knowledge about blockchain with not only the students but also other partners. There are also some outside partners involved in the early beginnings now. Partners in education, we call them, and they are interested in blockchain. We have some interesting projects running at the moment in the cargo or supply chain game. But this is me, and this is why we're doing something about blockchain. Maybe you can introduce yourself, Mr. Mobile.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey. You just heard me. Well, I'm actually a software engineer, and I have a class of 18 students, and I want to do a little bit of experiment last semester. Because I said, you have 20 weeks, and you have to build one blockchain. And at first they were really scared, because they did not know what to expect. They had no idea what a blockchain was. So the first 10 weeks they were just investigating how blockchain works. And that does not mean how does Bitcoin work or how does Ethereum work. They had to know how does a token work, how does it is distributed over the computers, how do we mine the coins, how do we keep up with the ledger, and all that kind of stuff. Next to that experiment, I also teaching Java, the Java Enterprise Framework. I'm teaching C#.NET. I'm learning our students to be an engineer and not a programmer. So, okay, you can write code now. Have you any idea how to design your code? And that's a challenge for our students because they know how to open a computer and they know how to type code, but they have no idea how to come up with some abstract ideas. So.
Okay, thanks. And as you can see, we're both from different parts, different types of expertise within Fontys, and the other 8 co-workers interested in blockchain and part of the blockchain work group are also from different parts, ICT and business, media designing, etc. And they're all looking in how can we learn from each other together with students about this technology that could disrupt a lot in our society. What we're going to do now, because the first few slides were a bit warming up and gauging what the knowledge of the audience about blockchain is, we are slightly touching what a blockchain is. Hope to explain that to you. But we hope that if you have questions, ask them during our slides. And if you want to interact or add something, because as we said, nobody here is actually an expert on blockchain in general, because there's too much to know at the moment and still evolving, please chime in. That will make it more interactive. Well, blockchain, what is it? If I explain it to my mother, I would say it is something like a very, very large notebook. But that notebook, everyone can read. In that notebook, everyone should be able to write. And that notebook, nothing can be erased in it. And it's actually indestructible. There are cases where you can debate about that, but it's actually indestructible. And then you have a notebook which records everything that's added. This is the layman's explanation of what a blockchain is. And even my mother now knows what a blockchain is, which is the weird thing about blockchain because it's still in its early phases. But my mother, who has nothing to do with ICT, knows what blockchain is. Actually, she knows what Bitcoin is. And phoned me up last Christmas. Danny, should I invest or not? And I was like, yeah, you're too late. But it was on the news. Okay. And that's what's weird about this technology. The usual process with technologies is that for a long time it's below the ground. Only people really getting into that technology know about that technology. And when it's viable for our society, then it slowly seeks, based upon your presentation, Thibaut, it seeks customers. It seeks people with an itch, and you try to fit that mold. but because of the cryptocurrency craze that was around, people gained a lot of money. It suddenly was in the news. Even Matthijs Nieuwkerk talked about Bitcoin and blockchain a few times. I don't think he still understands it, but and that's weird because it's still in its early stages. So now everybody has an opinion about it, and you can read every day somebody saying it already failed, it will bring nothing to the table. I myself don't believe that. We still have to see that, but we have a long time before we will see that. What does it do actually? Well, what it brings, and that's most important to me, it's a new way of sharing value, sharing data, which brings a new automated form of trust. And that trust, that's why it's in the middle for me, that is the most important thing that it will bring to our society if it gains all its promises. Why? Because we mentioned the internet earlier, Thibaut. The internet was actually designed as an open knowledge base, way of sharing knowledge and experiences with each other. But ever since Web 2.0, there are a few big tech companies that have gained so much control, and we're actually paying for everything that initially was something to be shared equally without any business case behind it. And most of the time, some of the times we're paying with cryptocurrency or other gains, but most of the time we're paying with data. And the filthy thing about it is that we most of the time are not aware that we are paying with our data. If recent news learned us something about that with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook Gate, it was called a bit, it learned that people are not to be trusted at the moment with our data and with the knowledge that we are putting online. And that is what blockchain could bring to the table. Adam Draper, someone heavily into the blockchain game, once stated the blockchain does one thing, and it does it good. It replaces third-party trust with mathematical proof that something happens. So what it does, it's a new way of processing data or giving proof, because it's not, you can't change it. You know for a fact that what's there in the blockchain is true. It cannot be altered by third parties or the party that is processing your data, which is a centralized, old-fashioned way of having a database. And this is, in my opinion, the biggest thing that the blockchain can bring. So to me, yes, I have a few Ether and other stuff around because it was fun to play with. But to me, the cryptocurrency game spoiled the promise of the technology a little bit. Well, there is an evolution of trust. This is the institutional way of trust. You have an authority that could be, well, that could be a Facebook, which you give your data. That could be the government. And they can be trusted in some way. If I look at my own country, the Netherlands, and I compare that to some other countries, I look at our way of dealing with real estate, for example. We have a kadaster, which is a centralized organization, digitalized, which has all the deeds about property, about real estate. And sometimes there are errors in them, but we know for a fact there's little corruption in our country. So we trust that. If I buy a house, I have a house in Helmond. Do I dare to say that in Eindhoven? I live in Helmond, yes. I have a house there, and I know that the kadaster will prove that I own that house. But there are other countries, and they don't have to be far away. I know of examples in Italy where a local government has been greased. They've been given money to determine that the property, a piece of ground, is not anymore of the person that actually bought it, but they gave it to somebody else for favors, for money or whatever. And then you cannot trust the government, whether it be local or national government. And in that case, there could be a business case for using blockchain. If you can prove it, and there is not one organization that owns the data so that it can change it, then you have mathematical proof for that trust. You can, again, trust the data. We are now in a sort of transgressional phase where we now have a lot of companies who surprisingly don't have a lot of products to give. They are based on services. We are slowly becoming a service-based society. Uber, Airbnb, I don't have to explain what they are. You all know those are some examples. Uber has no chauffeurs on their payroll. They own no cars. Airbnb has no real estate. They are just a middleman in the service, and well, they make a lot of money on it because they are filthy rich. But what it does is there's some more social control. For example, if you use Uber or Airbnb, you know that if Jeffrey rents his attic to somebody, haven't been in your attic ever, but I might imagine it's not as pleasant.
It's not very big.
Okay. Then somebody could put a review out about that, and then other people know, hey, that's not, it's money worth, so I'm not renting it.
That's what you say.
But there are cases already known with Uber where data has been changed to give favor to certain drivers. So then suddenly you cannot trust this interpersonal trust anymore either. So then if we take the step to blockchain-based trust, then we have an autonomous system that up until now, in theory and in small prototype cases in practice, are to be trusted entirely. So that trust, as you can see, is very meaningful to me. And I think it will bring a lot to our society. If we go to a Web 3.0 or Internet 3.0, what you want to call it, and that would be based on distributed, decentralized sharing of knowledge and data, then I think that we can have the trust in Internet again. We could even, there are already projects working on that, fact-checking through blockchains, where you can easily determine if something that is stated on the Internet is actually true or is, what Trump would say, fake news. Because that's also a societal problem. Yeah, I'm now on, that's his fault. Now I'm copying it, doing voices. There was actually a bad Trump. Okay, then somebody there. Robert, could you go back? Because we can only go forward with the clicker. Yes. I will go out of your way, then you can make it clear. You're welcome. Okay. So next, what it does, you already saw it in the previous slide. There are different ways of putting an infrastructure forward. This is centralized. This is the traditional way of building an infrastructure where you share data or value. This is the decentralized way. You see the difference? There are several, we could call them nodes or hubs, that share like crossroads with others, but there is not one central being that owns everything. And then we have the distributed part, and they are all interconnected. Now, why would this bring so much to the table? Well, among others, one of the things, and the animation will go awry a bit, but it will go back. If there is, for example, an attack on these types of architectures, then you see with a centralized based architecture, you're screwed. With a decentralized part, you still have some loss. But if you take a distributed part, then only the entity being attacked has a problem. And the data is still distributed among other entities. What brings security to a higher level, but also continuity. Yes?
What made it clear?
And I give you the mic, because people at home don't hear you. Here you go.
What made it clear for me, as a simple human being and not knowing a lot, in the beginning, at least, is that basically blockchain, what it does is that instead of being a centralized is decentralized, what it means is that data is shared with all the people. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that every data is distributed to all the people. So let's say if somebody like Facebook gets hacked, or I don't know, your internet bank account gets hacked, you're screwed. With blockchain, what happens is that the data is distributed to everybody. So nobody can steal your data because it's distributed to everybody, and if one computer gets hacked, nobody can hack all the computers. So this is it, right? It's distributed in everybody, so it's more secure.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Because I heard you saying that that everyone has all the data, and therefore so no one has the data.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit different, because when you were creating your profile a couple of years back, you were probably trusting Facebook that they would be handle your profile with integrity.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you put your data on the blockchain, we have, well, for instance, Bitcoin, but also Ethereum, thousands of nodes that has the same copy of the ledger, which are updated every couple of minutes with a new block. So your data, you now know that your data on the blockchain is open for everybody. And that gives a whole another level of trust. And that's different than that you give your data to Facebook or Google or Instagram. No.
Yeah, and I agree. And the thing is that, at least what also made it clearer for me, was that basically blockchain removes the middleman. Correct?
Probably. We go later in the slides. We are coming back on that topic.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. Well, what I wanted to add adds a bit to what you added, that when you have data distributed throughout different entities, and indeed these are the game players engaging into the blockchain, for example, Bitcoin, if they all have a ledger or at least a link to verifying the ledger with the data. There's not one person that keeps the notebook, the ledger, and can alter it. And even if one of these nodes or entities is attacked, then you can still have the truth from the other entities. And for it to actually work, you need a high amount of entities. The N should be very high, because the lower it is, the easier it could be, theoretically, to hack or mutate 51% of these entities. And once you do that, then you have control. You have the majority, and then you have control over what the data says. So in theory, that could be a problem. That's also musings there are about quantum computing. Quantum computing could one day be the death of blockchain. Well, it has to be seen. Blockchain isn't mature yet, so it's still not really alive.
So
it's just been born.
Quantum computer is also not mature yet.
No, true. Well, there are some, and please keep chiming in. Thank you for that. We have some statements here that we want to invite you to talk about what blockchain actually is. We don't want to bore you with a lot of slides telling you what it is. We want to interact with you about what it is.
Yeah, we have a couple of quotes, and we would like you to comment on that. So you are the first one to comment on this quote. I can also imagine that for some parts of our quotes, I was a little bit too technical. I'm sorry for that, but please feel free to ask me anything, even if it's technical. But would you like to comment on this quote? Sorry, what's your name? Kimon. Kimon, would you comment on this quote?
Yeah, well, for me, this is it. That's why I was interested, and I think that everybody that doesn't know and everybody that hears at home, blockchain and Bitcoin, they're a bit confused. And I think that, in simple words, for me, this is what blockchain is. It removes the middleman out of the equation. So people, let's say, and I think I can give a quick example. A kid in Africa who doesn't have a bank account could actually earn a living by doing something DIY at home, like a doll, that she could sell it and earn a living out of this without having a bank account, without having a cell phone, without having anything. So for me, this is as simple as that. Yeah, if I can explain it, I think that this is as simple as that.
If I may ask you, the middleman is notary. Is that a middleman? Okay, and a lawyer, is that a middleman? Bank? Okay. I'm not very sure if the middleman is eliminated because, for instance, a notary does more than just keeping the documents for you. He also reads the text that has been written and checks that it's valid. So, yes, a lot of people that have studied law should be scared, because a lot of lawyers and a lot of notaries will have no jobs in a couple of years, probably, when the blockchain is a little bit more mature.
Well, we can have a debate too, because I don't entirely agree. But
yes.
Finish your thought. Finish your
okay.
thought.
But we still need notaries. We still need lawyers. We still need some kind of middleman. But that middleman is not the ones that are between me and keeping my documents in some kind of safe place. You have a comment, Danny?
Well, what I want to add, and I first want to quote or misquote Vitalik Buterin, and that's the guy that created Ethereum. That's actually, in my opinion, a more a blockchain cryptocurrency. It's not actually cryptocurrency, but it uses tokens with value. But to me, it is more promising because it adds so much more than just Bitcoin. But he stated something along the lines that even though blockchain brings trust as a technology to the society, it will not be trusted because it is a new technology. And by nature, people don't trust new technology. So that is actually one of the more anthropological challenges we have at the moment. Thibaut, you want to add something?
He also said that if the cryptocurrency community doesn't stop behaving like children, it will never work.
Yeah, and he would actually drop the mic and walk away. He would let Ethereum be what it is. He would not be involved anymore. Because indeed, everybody was with the memes about going to the moon, and he was annoyed by that because he is doing this from the goodness of his heart. He wants to change society, and he does not want to be a billionaire. Even though, what? And Lambos, yeah. Well, they're actually, well, I read a news story about 2017 sales in the last quarter of Lamborghinis, and they actually has risen because of the cryptocurrency craze. So to me that's crazy, because who thinks I will buy a Lamborghini when I gain a lot of money? But all the young kids, they influenced each other with the memes online, and then they said, oh, I gained so much, now I have to buy a Lambo. Crazy. Anyway, so referring to this statement, I don't think the middleman will be cut out, but not just for the reasons that you stated. I think that trust is able to be gained through blockchain when it's mature and it's actually embraced by society. But I think that what those people that you mentioned, but even we as professors, as lecturers for a university, what we should do is we should adapt, we should change our way of doing our profession and incorporating something like blockchain. If you refer to a notary, for example,
for instance, yes.
It could be quicker, it could be with less mistakes, less errors,
Cheaper.
and it could be cheaper because of that. And if you change that, then notaries will still have a job, but they would ask less per hour for what they do, but they also have need for less time to read you aloud which property you bought, which you already know because you're for months already looking forward to that property. So he can still gain the same amount of income, in my opinion, by doing things more efficiently and faster.
As long as it's a good entrepreneur, then you will have the same income.
True.
Yeah.
Kimo wants to.
Talking to a person what we knew a lot about blockchain and about cryptocurrencies, and he told me something which was funny. He told me that he told his grandma back then, when the internet came around, you can send emails now, and she was like, "Yeah, but will I still be able to send fax?" And he was like, "You're missing the point. You won't need to anymore." And people, you know, when internet came around in the beginning, they were, you know, a bit afraid of this new technology, like you said. But this opens up so many new things and new possibilities to, and I think it will take time for blockchain to arrive to the level that people will trust it and use it.
True.
And yeah, the thing with the fax is funny because a lot of people are afraid to invest, or not invest like money. I'm not talking about investing money, in believing in this new technology.
Well, I use an example a lot about silent movies back in the day, and that's what's actually happening with blockchain now, and I refer to Thibaut's presentation earlier also. You have to fit the mold. And if you stumble upon a cool technology like blockchain, we have a distributed, decentralized way of keeping data in a place or in several places at one time. But we are still looking how to fit it into the mold. And there are a lot of suggestions about ways to apply this in society. But if I think back, and I use this a lot with my students, I tell them, men came up with the camera, and it was very cool. They could record moving images, wow, in black and white without sound, and that's how we got the silent movies. If you ever looked at the first silent movies, they actually did the same as they did in theater. They had a tripod, a camera. It was fixed to the ground because people were scared. It was so expensive they would fall down, and people were actually do their little play in front of the camera and then move out again. It was still a theater, but it was a theater that became mobile because you can show it somewhere else without the actors. And up until somebody thought, whoa, it would be cooler to get this off and really zoom in onto this audience and really get it going so you're into whatever happens. That was when the real movie experience started. But at first they had this cool technology, but they were actually having the same process. We're used to theaters, so we're doing it the same. And with blockchain and big data and cloud and apps and all the hypes that we had in the past 15 years, people are first looking at the existing processes and try to make a match between the new cool technology and that existing process. And it takes time for people to adapt and come up with new ways to have your processes executed.
Yeah, we really have to experiment with the blockchain to find new areas of expertise or areas of application for the blockchain.
And that's what we're doing now with students. I have a cool example, and I'm so proud of these students. They are having a startup now about this. They thought about, well, pensions. Pensions is something, there's much to be debated about that for the past 10 years. And I don't know if I will ever enjoy a governmental arranged
state pension.
State pension, yes. Thank you. But the young students that we have now, they will never think about pension. They are not aware that they should think about when there actually will be coming a day that they think, well, I don't want to work anymore, or not as much as I did previously. And what these students came up with, and they are now working with AGP, one of the biggest pension companies in the Netherlands, they tried to put microtransactions on the blockchain to make it more, to have the proof of the trust, but to make it also more transparent. And one of these examples is that they are using, and I don't know the word in English, statiegeld, anyone? No one? Well, we have plastic bottles. When we buy them, we pay a little extra so that we will return them and we will receive statiegeld. And you can instantly, that's actually their prototype that's working now, you can instantly put that in your pension and it will instantly give you the returns for when you're 67 or 71 or whatever. So then you see that these €2 in beer bottles will give me 14 euros a month when I'm that and that age. And that gives them a way to play with pension, think about it, and now they're more aware. And they already won 2 prizes with that idea on the blockchain, the biggest blockchain hackathon we did last year.
Yeah, that was in Groningen.
In Groningen. And recently, the IC Talent Awards, they won another $5,000 for them. So that's kicking up. And those are ideas that are entirely from the students. So that's cool.
Next one?
Yes, let's try that. I'm blocking the signal or something.
Well, blockchain needs regulation. Any ideas from that? We have now something called the ECB, the European Central Bank. Anybody heard of? Does something with interests and money, and can we say that's a centralized organization to regulate our money? Sorry? The name implies it, but do you think they do?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Do you trust them?
No, because there's a lot of political agendas behind the central bank.
Yeah, I know we have a Italian president for the ECB, which is a little bit controversial, but they regulate our money. And one of the things that Satoshi invented the blockchain for was to eliminate the banks. Kind of funny story. Rabobank is now trying to create a wallet for cryptocurrencies. I guess that's a central bank. But does anybody think that Bitcoin, for instance, needs regulation?
The software, the algorithms, that's the regulation.
You say algorithms. So what kind of algorithms do you mean?
The ones that generate the proof of work, for instance.
Proof of work. We can have a discussion on that. Do you also have other consensus models that you know of?
Yeah, well, Ethereum uses another one, proof of stake.
Well, actually, they do it half at the moment, but they are in transition. I know that.
Regulations for the platform.
Organizations.
I kind of disagree with you, because it's not actually regulation. Well, it's a little bit of regulation, but actually those models or those works, the Bitcoin miners are doing the proof of work, and what they're doing is just signing transaction blocks. That's the only thing they're doing, and but they do not say Ethereum is now worth $600.
Ethereum in your statement.
Oh, but I can also do this for Bitcoin or maybe other blockchain. Yes, I know. Okay, but do you think blockchain needs regulation?
So to go back to what you guys said earlier on, regulation is a form of trust, right? Whereas blockchain is an alternative to that. So I think that blockchain by itself is a new form of regulation. And I think that that's also what the gentleman in the front was trying to say with the technology as such is a new form of regulation. And legislations like GDPR, which are hugely effective in blockchain, are just ways,
that's my personal opinion, of existing instances trying to slow down or stop the blockchain evolution or revolution. That's my personal opinion.
Do you mean the GDPR is slowing down the blockchain? Yeah, because there's a little bit of a problem with the right to forget. And then he just told us that once it is on the blockchain, it can never be altered. So there we have a problem. So my Bitcoin transaction, I can ask our Bitcoin developers whatever I want, but they cannot change the transaction that was already on the blockchain.
I'll be the devil's advocate here. You
Yes.
might have a debate about whether your Bitcoin transaction is personal data, because it's about personal data. But in a lot of projects that we have, a lot of theoretical or prototyping projects, we are actually talking about personal data. And that's a problem because we cannot erase it without blowing up the entire chain. And we are also often debating about that. What are possible solutions for that? And also with outside partners, blockchain companies working with us. Some are trying to do it with using the blockchain only as a ledger for transactions and putting the actual data somewhere else, but it defeats the initial purpose about nothing having a central entity or organization owning the data. So to me, that's not a favorable solution. You could say, and I'm curious as to if this would hold up in court, but you could say, let's build a blockchain, not hashing, but use encryption. We have an encryption key for every person that has data in the blockchain. And if, for instance, Thibaut or Jeffrey asks me, okay, I want my data to be erased, we will destroy the key. So in theory, we would have no access anymore to that data. But it still exists. It is not deleted. So if we're going to the future and one day that encryption is not so safe anymore, then somebody could still grab that data and we still have a problem there. So I'm curious as the first judge that will be residing over a question like this, because we have no real solution yet. To the next one, because we're past our time already.
I think this is going to be the last one because already 7 o'clock. But I would do you know what smart contracts are? Does anybody have an idea? Everybody knows what bitcoins are, and it's just a little bit of value in some kind of ledger that's on the blockchain. But instead of value, we can also put a process on the blockchain. So let's go back to the notary. I want to buy a house. I need to do 7 things before the house is my own. And I can put that process on the blockchain. So now I'm not putting a value on the blockchain, but maybe a script to buy my house. So when I have these 7 things done, the house is mine, automatically. And that's a smart contract. Is that a difficult thing to grasp? I hope it's. I thought it easy because some of my students did not understand what I was saying. But smart contracts are the futures. Putting processes on a blockchain. Is there a future in that? I give you a minute to think about it. Can someone maybe come up with an idea to apply a smart contract?
Me.
It's very silent, so I think this is a little bit difficult. Did you buy a house? Did you buy a house? And in the Netherlands? Okay. And how difficult did you find the process of buying a house?
6 weeks long.
That's what I meant. Do you think that could be shortened in time?
Very much possible.
And how should we do that if I was to ask you?
bring technology into it.
You didn't use any technology. Did you?
Not entirely 100% technology. There were lots of middlemen available, and there were lots of processing time depending on people who has different agendas behind it. So yeah, there was delays. Wherever technology was there, it was pretty smooth and fast.
Well, let's say, for instance, the process that you had to undertake to buy the house, I put it on the blockchain. So the process of buying the house is now a fixed process. Do you think that the time was shortened?
Quite possible, but I do not know right now. I'm also struggling to this.
Yeah, I must be honest, I don't have the answer to that, because 6 weeks is a very short period. But I do think that there are some applications in buying houses and real estate.
Another smart contract solution. Do you have one, Danny?
Wow. Loads, but
okay. Do you have?
I think to answer your question, I think it is the future. I think it's the only way for the blockchain to work, because what it does, maybe for the people that don't exactly know what a smart contract is, it's adding some intelligence to, now in this case, a contract, but so that processes can be automated. You could, for instance, say, if we, as a group of people, go do something that we want to fund with money that we put together, but, for example, have drinks later, but somebody drinks a little more than others, we could automate the process in balancing that, and, for example, the smart contract could be finished when the balance has been met. So the smart contract keeps track of what everybody drinks, converts that to value, monetary value, would be easy in this case. And then when everybody chipped in their amount and all balances are met, then the smart contract would know, okay, this is cool, I can now finish this and tell everybody that they had their money's worth. And no person has to be involved in that. If we would do that now analogy, then, for example, I should count if everybody paid their 20 euros or somebody drank more, and then it would slow the process, make it less efficient. And that's, in my case, a simple example how you can use a smart contract. But it can be used for anything. If you look at the supply chains of a fish that's been caught somewhere in the world, and then at the end of the supply chain, it ends up on my plate here at the kazerne. Then maybe I want to know about that fish. I want to know where it's caught, what types of antibiotics it got, if it even had any, transportation, everything. And if you could do that on the blockchain and have smart contracts keep that together, then you can use that, and at the end give a verification. This is a sustainable fish and a healthy fish, whatever. The same could be done with clothing. I think clothing could be a very interesting thing, because if you look at public opinion, we have Primarks, we have the H&Ms, and they have a bad reputation, and maybe they have done some bad things in the past, but they are actually looking at all clothing retailers. They're actually not that bad in case of being transparent about what they're doing. It's still debatable if they're doing the best for where the cotton originates or where clothes are sewn or made or styled. You want to add something?
More in a general sense, because what I'm completely missing is sort of the acceptance level of the general public and the practical examples of when you would be using it. So if I would be in clothing supply chain, then I can already do a lot of this by using the IP chips that are already in my garments. But the practical acceptance of an industry, to me, makes it easier for people to understand how they would do it, instead of just talking about Bitcoin or talking about notary or trust. People will generally accept a new technology if it solves a problem for them, and not in a conceptual way. But if I can have a blockchain in my company, and it is limited in my company, but I can still use blockchain as a means to automate a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, then I'm getting a direct, practical acceptance somewhere instead of,
Okay, understood. But I have to say personally, and we're still in the first stages of blockchain, but personally I think that if you want to do that, what you just described, you should not use a blockchain, because within your company there's probably a high level of trust, and
the trust level. It's about my automation. So let's say I make a garment, and it has to go through 5 stages of production, and there's a customer asking for a certain garment on my website.
Yeah, I understood that, but I think that you don't need blockchain, because blockchain is not automation per se. You can automate that entire process without using blockchain, and I would advise you to do that.
For me, blockchain then
would allow me to control the whole process within the confinement of my company, where I would then have the, let's say, physical trust on I was using the right ink, or the use of the right cotton, or the use of... So it actually gives a high value to my supply chain without me per se having to be very transparent to the outside world. But if I then as a company would accept this as a technology that would help me, my customers, my company, then all of a sudden it gets out of the conceptual thing where people talk about Bitcoin and stuff, but it makes it really practical, usable, and by doing that, more acceptable, maybe.
I agree. In my personal opinion, the sad thing is that we are still in that conceptual phase, because we have a lot of talk about possible ways to apply this for businesses, for society, etc. But we have no actual proof of that yet.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Of course we do. There are blockchain companies which are doing exactly what you were saying.
Which is delivering a solution to a problem. And the most successful cases never ever say that they do it on blockchain, but they are blockchain applications. So one of the companies that we work with in our program, they do securitization solutions. Let's not go into the detail of what that means. But basically they deliver a different way and a better way of what
a specific financial institution already does internally with their clients. They automate it and optimize the process, split it up into different chunks so that they can resell those, and that adds a new product. And the fact that they do it on the blockchain or that they don't, to the client it doesn't matter. And it also ties back to, you know, what I said in my previous presentation. It doesn't matter about the technology, it's about the value proposition, right? And there are successful, cash flow positive blockchain companies out there.
But they're not transparent, which is to me ironical, because it's about being transparent, but they're not transparent about using the technology blockchain. I gather that they're not doing that because the technology is not yet accepted. Okay.
Well,
thank you.
It's actually a little bit funny that you say that, because one of the pioneers, Max Kordak of LISC, he has a vision, and he says, well, actually my vision becomes reality when I can write applications and no one even notices that it's used blockchain. So actually, so that's because you're talking about. I assume you're in the clothing industry, but okay. Well, there is a little bit of how you call it distrust if a company would like to use a blockchain private, and that does not mean that they should not use it. But then you're talking about computer infrastructure, and actually. Because you said a little bit about supply chain, huh? You said that if I want to use my supply chain.
Could I interchime? I have a next engagement and we're running a little late. So you should finish this line of thought. So this is a bit weird, but I really have to cut this short. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we're running a little bit late.
If anybody wants to have discussions or other ideas about blockchain, please hit us up through Fontys, Danny, Bloks, and Jeffrey. And thank you for your time. And please continue this with Jeffrey because it's very interesting. But I really have to go. Sorry.
Thank you, Danny. Because you said supply chain, I was triggered. You know Toyota, the large auto company? They have this concept that is called Kanban. You have heard about it? And actually, since the 70s, what they say is we have a ground supplier from iron or whatever. And along the line, there are a lot of factories and other companies that you purchase your products from, and what they do is they try to mingle with the companies, and so they streamline the whole supply chain. I'm sure you heard about it. Yeah. And actually, that's one of the biggest areas where the blockchain is applied, because in the old days they had to use forms, and those forms had to come with the product to the factory. And once they are creating a new product, then you have a set of papers, and in the end you have a file which says a little bit about what kind of product you have. If we put it in the blockchain, then the iron company, that's the only thing they do is, okay, now I have it delivered to the next supplier. They say something like, I delivered 12 tons of iron to the door manufacturer. The door says, okay, I got this iron. Now I'm stamping new doors, and I'm delivering to the next supplier. They are putting the windows in, and after the door is finished, they are delivering it to the car manufacturer. And all those steps are put in the blockchain for the whole supply chain. And now, when I'm getting the car, at least that's the idea, when I'm getting the car and I have a problem with it, and it is, for instance, the door, then I just make a phone call to Toyota, and I say, I have this car with this number, and can you give me an estimate on what the problem is? And the only thing they have to do is go on the blockchain, there's the door, and we have to contact that manufacturer, and we have to find out what the problem could be. So you have a more detailed record of your car or whatever product you are selling through a blockchain. And this is one of the industries, the logistics industries is one of the biggest industries that is accepting the blockchain. So I don't know, it's not really a private blockchain, it's semi-private. It also works with proof of authority and all kinds of technical stuff. But there are also a little bit of smart contracts you can put in those blockchain. I had a lot of more quotes, but I have to save it for another time. I had loads of discussion. It was a little bit fun, and I hope to see you next time.
Thanks. Very interesting. Shall we do a drink? And yeah, thank you for visiting all again, some of you. Next week we will visit the building site next to the kaserne and have one of the architects. He's called, not from this side, but Jelle Hoebe. He's 3D printing a whole bunch of houses in the near future here in Eindhoven. So I'm very curious about that and about that technique. And yeah, hope to see you again. Bring friends. Yeah, and we will say to our partners that they need to come themselves as well. But thank you all for visiting. Let's see you at the bar.